Moving too fast for you, okay? We are going to do page 12 in our digital interactive notebook. So please make sure that you write page 12. The title of page 12 is Recursive. And Explicit, this is the and symbol. Formulas for linear functions. Okay. The smaller word in linear is line. Linear functions, or equations rather, graph straight lines. I'm going to pause real quickly so you can write this down. What we remember about linear equations is that linear equations graph straight lines. So we're going to write that down. Linear equations. Remember, not all linear equations are functions, okay? If it's a vertical line, it's not a function because it has all the same x values. So I'm going to say linear equations here, graph straight lines. Linear equations, the smaller word in linear is line, are equations that graph straight lines. Okay. Recursive and explicit formulas are other ways to write a function or an equation. Okay, and I'm going to put an asterisk here so you'll know. Recursive and this is the and symbol. Explicit formulas are other ways to write a function or an equation. There are other ways to write a function or an equation. Okay, it's two different ways to write a function or an equation, and that is more than just a linear function. It can be other types of functions, but we're only going to talk about recursive and explicit formulas for linear functions only today. Okay, we'll pause. All right, I'm going to talk about recursive first. Recursive formulas, talk about that first. Recursive formulas are procedures or rules, okay, which is a formula that repeats itself, okay, are procedures / rules, okay, this is where they get this part of the definition, is what they mean by formula, that repeats itself. And you'll better understand that when we get to examples, okay? The example that we're going to use, the name of the example that we're going to be using is next now equations. There are many types of recursive formulas, but the one that we're going to learn how to do today is called a next now equation. That's the one that we're going to learn how to write. Okay. So this is recursive formula. There are procedures or rules that repeat themselves or itself. Now we're going to do explicit formulas. Explicit formula or formulas Okay, are rules where you substitute values to get a specific answer. Are rules, okay, where you substitute value or values to get a specific skipping words answer. Okay? It's that time of day where that sun is out like crazy. The example for explicit formulas are y equals mx plus b. Equations that are written in slope-intercept form are already written are in explicit formulas. So slope-intercept form is an example of an explicit formula. Okay, and why is that an example? Because you can plug in a number for x and get a value for y. Now we're going to do some examples. Pause real quickly so you can write this down. Okay, so now let's do some examples. First example, let's suppose that we have y, which is equal to total amount of money into your bank account. You start off with, you open the account with $300. So this is your starting amount. And you decide to add $50 a month. Okay. So again, y is going to be the total amount of money that's in your account. 300 is going to be your y-intercept or your starting amount of money that's in your account. $50 per month, that's your rate of change. You're going to add $50 every single month. And y represents the number of months. X represents the number of months. This situation is already written in an explicit formula. This is an explicit formula. The name of this explicit formula is called the slope-intercept form. The name of this explicit formula is called the slope-intercept form. So this is already written, or this is written as an explicit formula, and the name of the explicit formula is the slope-intercept form. Questions about that? Now we want to write the recursive formula. So to write this as recursive formula, we're going to use the next now equation. Okay, the name of the recursive formula that we're going to use is called the next now equation. Okay? There are many other recursive formulas and explicit formulas, but these are the two that we're going to focus on. So we have our next now equation. To write a next now equation from this equation here, you're always going to write starting at. You have to have a number in which you start, okay? So our starting amount is going to be that $300. We started off with $300 in our account. You have to write starting at. You have to say the starting amount first. Now, since it's called next now equation, you're going to use the words next now. So now you automatically, with all of these, you're going to write them the same way. You're going to say next, your next number is equal to the current number, the now number, and every single month you're going to add $50. This is your recursive formula. Why is this your recursive formula? Because if I want to know how much money I will have in the 5th month, I would have to repeat this procedure 5 times. I start off with my starting amount. I would say my next number is equal to the now number, which is 300. And then I add 50 to it. So that's 350. My next number is 350. Then the number after that, I would take the 350, and it's my new now, and I would say 350 plus 50, and that gives me a now, the next as 400. And I have to repeat the same procedure or this same step 5 times for 5 months, 10 times for 10 months, 20 times for 20 months. Okay? Don't worry, I'll never ask you to do it that many times. Okay? All right, so the name of this recursive formula again is called the next now equation. Okay, and I'll pause real quickly so you can get this written down. Okay. All right, number 2, second example. If 2, let's suppose that y represents the amount of miles left in my trip. The amount of miles left in my trip, the total amount of miles left in my trip. And I started off with 500 miles. It's a 500-mile trip. And I'm going 55 miles every single hour. So I'm going to subtract 55 miles every single hour. So this is my equation here. So again, my y represents the total amount of miles left in this trip. The 500 represents the starting amount of miles. My trip is 500 miles. And the negative or minus 25 represents how many miles I travel every single hour. So I'm going to subtract 55 miles for every hour that I drive. Okay? This is my explicit formula. The name of this explicit formula that I've used is called the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Questions about this explicit formula? To write this explicit formula as a recursive formula, do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to use the next now equation. Okay? So when you use the next now equation, you always going to write starting at. You have to write the starting number first. So I'm starting at 500 miles. That's how long the trip is. Let me pause for the calls. Guys, can you please just answer, say your question out loud, because other people might want to hear it. I forgot to do that last time. All right, so here you have your next number is equal to your now, and you're going to subtract 55 miles, okay, every hour. So this is my recursive formula. The name of this recursive formula is next now equation. So this is my recursive formula, and the name of this recursive formula is my next now, or it's called next now equation. Okay. All right, and I'm going to pause to make sure that you're able to copy that. Now we're going to do independent practice problem. Okay, I don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to try to get what I can get done in, okay? All right, so in this very first one, we're writing, the direction says write the linear equation in explicit The explicit form that we're going to use is the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Okay? There are many other explicit forms, but the one that we're going to use for these examples is the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. The recursive form that we're going to use is going to be your next now equation. There are many others that we could use, but right now we're just learning how to use next now equation. Okay? All right, good people. So let's do number 1. We're going to write the explicit form and then the recursive form. We're going to do that for each of these. So in order to join a dancing club, there's a $30 startup fee and a $4 monthly fee. Okay, we're writing the linear or we're writing an equation. We're going to write it in explicit and then write it in recursive. So I'm going to put explicit first. Okay, your explicit formula is going to be in y equals mx plus b form. In this equation, what's going to be, or in this word problem, sorry, what's going to be my m and then what's going to be my b? Any guesses, any ideas? B is going to be the $30. Very good. And what's going to be my m? The 4, because it's $4 per month. So then how do I write this as an equation? Y is equal to what? Okay, it is. Okay, and so what numbers am I plugging in for m and b? What is that going to? Very good, 4x plus 30. This is my explicit formula, okay? So now I'm going to write my recursive. I'm going to write my recursive formula. So my recursive formula, how I do this is I'm going to use next now. I'm going to use the next now equation, okay? There are many that I can use, but the one that we're going to focus on is the next now equation, okay? So this, in order to use next now, you have to have a starting at number. So you say starting at, and what's going to be my starting amount or starting number? It's going to be my starting amount or starting number. Anybody? Very good. It's going to be 30 here. Okay. Now I'm going to write the words. Next equals now. Okay. So this is given. We always write this. We write next is equal to now. This is how you use or how you write a next now equation. So we got next equals now. Is it going to be plus or minus? Plus 4. Very good. Because this is a positive 4. So it's going to be plus 4. We're adding $4 every single month. And this is my recursive formula. The name of the recursive formula used is called the next now equation. Let's look at number 2. Okay. In order to join an online learning community, there's a $20 startup fee, and a $5 monthly fee. And again, we're writing this in explicit formula, and then we're going to write the recursive formula. Okay? The explicit formula that I'm going to use is y equals mx plus b. Okay? The recursive formula that I'm going to use is called the next now equation. Okay? So now, what's going to be my m in this situation, in this word problem? And what's going to be my b? Very good. Then how do I write that as an equation? Very good. Y equals 5x plus 20. Excellent. This is my recursive formula. The name of the recursive formula that I use is slope-intercept form. All right, so let's look at, explicit. Now we're doing recursive. That's next now. When I write a next now equation, what's the first thing that I have to write? Very good. You have to say starting at, and you write the starting number. What is the starting number in this problem? The starting number is 20. This is your starting amount. It is 20. Somebody different. What are the words that I have to write for my next now? Very good. Next equals now plus 5. Excellent. This is a recursive formula. The name of the recursive formula is called a next now equation. You can do number 3 on your own. I'm going to show you how to do number 4 because that one's, you're going to write that one just to do that one a little bit differently. The U.S. Bureau of Census predicted the population of Florida would be 17.4 million in 2010, then increased to about 0.22 million per year until until 2015. Okay. All right. So now, how do I write this as an equation? Oh, this is even simpler than I thought. You actually could do this on your own. What's going to be my explicit formula and my recursive formula? Okay. Explicit and recursive. Explicit, we're using slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Recursive, we're using the next now equation. All right. So now, what's going to be my m and what's going to be my b? What's my m and my b? So then it's next equals now, you said, plus 0.22. Okay. Any questions about how we did this? You should be able to do the others on your own, okay? All right.